This is a continuation of the previous story. Make sure to watch the first part on our channel first. That's right. We've been trying to support her, she answered, her voice bristling with defensiveness. See, that's exactly my issue, I said, leaning forward. Why is it up to you or any of her friends to help her figure out her marriage? Isn't that something she should be working out with me? Her husband. Amber's eyes dropped to her plate, the words hitting their mark. I wasn't about to let up. And really, what business is this of yours anyway? She's my friend, Amber murmured, her earlier confidence fading. Right? And I'm supposed to be her best friend, her partner. If she had issues with me, shouldn't she have come to me instead of running off to her friends? Instead, she's out kissing other men, working through her feelings. And you all thought that was a fantastic idea. Amber's face paled, and I could see her appetite disappear, but I wasn't about to let her off easy. Let me ask you something, Amber, I continued, keeping my voice steady and calm. Are you married? She shook her head. No. Have you ever been married? No. Got any professional background in marriage counseling? No, she whispered, her discomfort clear. So what makes you think you're qualified to give advice on someone else's marriage? I asked bluntly. You've never lived in one, never experienced what it's like to wake up to the same person every day, facing all the ups and downs that come with it. What gives you the right to interfere in ours? Amber looked stunned, unprepared for the directness of my words. But I'm her friend, she insisted, her voice barely holding steady. Funny, I said dryly, because from where I'm sitting you don't seem like much of one. How many times have you even spoken to me? Once? Twice? I've been married to Samantha for 15 years, and yet you've never bothered to get to know me. The person your friend married. Amber stared at me, lost for words. All this time you've been helping her, but you've only ever listened to her side of the story. Have you ever even asked about mine? I could see tears welling up in her eyes, her expression shifting. I'd struck a nerve, and I knew I'd gotten through as much as I could. Now it was time to drive the message home, the one I was sure she'd carry back to Samantha. Amber, I said, my tone softening slightly. Samantha made her feelings clear to me. She's the one who asked for the divorce. She looked me right in the eyes and said, I'm not in love with you anymore. What am I supposed to say to that? How could I argue with her feelings? I let my words hang for a moment, letting their weight settle. She wasn't wrong. She's the one who wanted out, not me. So why should I sit here, miserable, hoping she'll change her mind? I'm not going to put my life on hold because she's confused or doesn't want me anymore. Other women out there see something in me that Samantha doesn't. She pushed me away. I didn't push her. I stood up, tossing a few bills on the table to cover my half-eaten meal. I'm done trying to convince her to stay or change her mind. I've made my peace with it. As I turned to leave, I paused for a final word. And Amber, if you're truly her friend, you should have helped her avoid those weak moments, not encouraged her to give in to them. Think that over. Without waiting for her response, I walked out, knowing full well she'd be dialing Samantha's number before I even hit the parking lot. But at that moment, my mind had moved on. I had work to focus on and plans that evening with Brooke. Things with her had been going well. She was different from the others, young but grounded, and there was no denying she was attractive. When she first joined the company, we'd kept things strictly professional. But one day I was telling a bit of a risque joke to a few of the guys, and she happened to walk in just in time for the punchline. Everyone froze, waiting for her reaction. When I turned around, there it was, a look of pure shock on her face. I just gave her my mischievous grin and said, "Come on, admit it. It's both true and funny." She stared at me, stunned for a moment, before bursting into laughter. From then on, she fit right in with the guys. But by the end of our date, she was all woman. Brooke let me get closer than anyone else had, but at the last moment, I pulled back, turning down her invitation to stay the night. As much as I was tempted, there were things I needed to resolve with Samantha before crossing that line with anyone else. Later that night, as I was drifting off in bed, Samantha's voice broke the silence. Arthur? She called, her voice thick with emotion. Yeah, I mumbled, still groggy and half asleep. I need you to take a shower, she said, her voice wavering. What? I asked, disoriented and confused. The room was dark, and from her tone, I could tell she was crying. Please, Arthur, if you won't shower, I'll have to ask you to sleep in the guest room. I was baffled. What's going on? I turned on the bedside lamp and looked over at her. She was curled up, her face streaked with tears, looking small and fragile. Please, Arthur, she sobbed, her voice barely above a whisper. You can come back to bed, but I'm begging you, shower first. I don't understand. I always shower in the morning. You know that, I said, still confused. She turned away, holding herself together as best she could. You smell like her. That's when it hit me, Brooke. I hadn't realized her scent was still on me. A pang of guilt cut through me. I'm sorry, I whispered, not knowing what else to say. I didn't realize. I hesitated, unsure of what to do next. Look, if you want me to sleep in the guest room, I will. Just say the word. No, she sobbed, her voice raw. I want you here in our bed. Arthur, I can't handle you smelling like someone else. I just can't. She was unraveling in front of me. I want you here, but it's already hard enough knowing you've been seeing others. I can try to ignore it, pretend you're just out with the guys, or tell myself that Paige was just a friend. But now, it's right here. I can smell it. I can't handle her scent on you. I can't do it. I looked at her, feeling a mix of emotions. You made your choice, I said quietly, my voice steady. You let me go. Don't ask me to change now. I stood up and walked out, heading to the guest room, where I slept alone that night. The next morning was Saturday, and I slept in. It had been a draining week, and the late nights were catching up with me. I wasn't as young as I used to be, and I was starting to feel the wear. Samantha woke me up with breakfast, and after we ate, she asked me about my plans for the weekend. I don't have any, I said simply. Arthur, she began, her voice softer than usual as she stood by the kitchen table. What is it? I asked, looking up at her. She reached into her pocket, pulled something out, and knelt down in front of me. Opening her hand, she revealed my wedding ring, her fingers trembling as she held it. She took my hand, her eyes filled with tears. Arthur, I want to work on our marriage, she said softly. Maybe I didn't think things through. Slowly, she tried to slide the ring back onto my finger, but I gently stopped her. I still love you, she whispered, her voice breaking. I'm still in love with you. She waited, kneeling there, her entire hope resting on what I would say next. I took a deep breath. Samantha, when two people get married, they make vows to stand by each other through everything, for better or worse, and to forsake all others. But you didn't forsake all others. You saw issues in our marriage and took them to your friends instead of coming to me. Friends who don't even know what marriage is like. You chose to lean on other men, pushing me away. And whether or not anything physical happened doesn't matter to me anymore. The moment you looked for comfort elsewhere, you left me. Samantha's tears fell freely now, but I kept going. I've thought about this every single day. And you know what? I found happiness without you, without the weight of betrayal hanging over me. It would be naive to think we could just turn back and pretend this didn't happen. I paused, giving her time to absorb my words. I don't want a life where every argument stirs up your betrayal, where we keep reopening old wounds. Tomorrow morning, you'll be served with the divorce papers. I've arranged for a fair division of our assets, and you can keep the house. I suggest you speak with a lawyer, but as for me, I'm done, Samantha. You cut me out, and now I'm making my own choice. She crumpled onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. I stood, left the room, and went to the guest room, where I slept peacefully through the night. The next morning, I packed my things. Samantha was still sitting in the kitchen, looking as though she hadn't moved all night. I sat down near her one last time. I'm not here to apologize or assign blame, I said quietly. I just need you to understand that maybe we were never meant to be. With that, I stood up, walked out of the house and out of Samantha's life. 6 months later, our divorce was finalized. Part of the process required me to attend counseling, though I saw it as a formality. My love for Samantha had long faded. During those sessions, she kept insisting she'd never slept with anyone else. At our last session, I finally decided to speak up. "Samantha doesn't love me," I told the counselor. "You call it confusion. But confusion is something you handle before marriage. Marriage is a choice. You work through doubts and choose to stay with someone. If you're still confused after committing, then it's a different problem altogether." I looked at the young counselor, who seemed uncertain how to respond. "We live in modern times, sure, but if cheating is as common as you say, then why get married at all? If marriage no longer implies fidelity, then it's lost its meaning. And if cheating is commonplace, then divorce should be too. Cheat and you get divorced. It's as simple as that." The counselor didn't have much to say. The divorce went through, and after 6 months, I was officially free. Am I happy? Not exactly. Am I sad? Not really either. Somewhere along the line, the extremes of happiness and sadness lost their edge. Do I enjoy life? Yeah, I do. I work, I date, and I've taken up martial arts, something new to keep me moving. I'm too old to compete, but who's to say you can't teach an old dog new tricks? Samantha eventually remarried. I received an invitation but chose not to go. Amber got married, too, though her marriage ended 5 months later. Her husband had the good sense to have a solid prenup in place. Will I get married again? I don't know. Maybe time will give me that answer.